Lyra had always believed she would die standing. She had imagined her final moment many times, sword in hand. Enemies before her, her name shouted by warriors as thunder rolled in the sky. She was a soldier of the Valeri Empire, one of the fastest fighters in her entire regiment. Her people admired strength, speed, and courage above everything. Weakness was shame. Fear was sin. And failure was worse than death. But in the end, she did not fall like a warrior. She fell like broken debris on a silent battlefield. The war between the Valeri and the Coalition forces had turned savage. The Coalition was made up of many species, including humans. They had outnumbered the Valeri, but the Valeri were strong and proud. Victory had seemed certain until the enemy launched an explosion, so powerful it swallowed half the valley. She remembered bright light. She remembered fire. Then she remembered nothing. When her eyes opened again, she was lying on cold ground. Smoke filled the sky. Her ears rang. Her head pounded. She tried to sit up, but she could not move. Her right leg, she looked down. Her leg was gone. Her breath froze in her throat. For a few seconds, her mind refused to accept it. She stared at the place where her leg should have been. Instead of flesh and bone, there was burned skin wrapped in dirty bandage someone had quickly tied before leaving. Blood had dried around it. Pain pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Her hands shook. She tried to crawl, but her body was too weak. Every small movement sent waves of pain through her. She pressed her palms against the ground and dragged herself a few inches forward. Her arms trembled. Her shoulders burned. She collapsed again. She could smell burnt metal and smoke. She could hear distant voices and gunfire. She was alone. She lay there, staring at the sky. Clouds drifted slowly above her. The air was strangely peaceful. Birds had begun to return, flying across the smoke. Her people were gone. She knew the Valeri army had strict rules. The wounded who could not move on their own were to be left behind. Transporting them slowed down retreat forces. She had once agreed with that rule. She had thought it was logical. Now she was one of the abandoned. She was not a soldier anymore. She was useless. She closed her eyes. Perhaps it was better to die here. She did not fear death. But she feared living without purpose. Her pride was her life. Without her legs, she would no longer be allowed to serve in the Valeri army. The Empire would not accept a broken warrior. She would return in shame, and people would look at her with quiet pity. No one would say it, but she would know they were thinking, she is no longer one of us." She gritted her teeth. Tears threatened to fall, but she forced them back. Valeri soldiers did not cry. Even alone, even dying, she would not. She lay still. Time passed slowly. The sky turned orange as the sun began to set. Her body felt heavier. Her heartbeat slowed. She was drifting into sleep or maybe unconsciousness. Then footsteps. Her eyes opened sharply. She turned her head. Someone was walking toward her through the smoke. A tall figure in white armor. Not Fala. Her first instinct was to reach for her weapon, but her spear was gone. She tried to grab a nearby stone to throw, but her hand barely moved. The human stopped a few steps away, lifting his hand slowly to show he held no weapon. His face was partly hidden behind a visor, but his voice was calm when he spoke. "Hey, I'm here to help." Lyra's heart pounded with anger. "I don't need help," she hissed. He didn't argue. He stepped closer. "I'm a medic," he said softly. "I'm not here to fight." "I said leave," she shouted, though her voice was weak. He spoke with patience, okay, as if talking to someone wounded in both body and heart. "I won't touch you unless you allow it. But your wound needs treatment. If I don't stop the bleeding, you'll die within an hour." "Then let me die," she muttered. The human paused. His posture softened. "No," he said quietly. "Not like this. Not alone." Something about those words made Lyra hesitate. She stared at him, surprised. He wasn't mocking her. His tone was not proud or arrogant. It was gentle. She hated that it affected her. He knelt beside her carefully, making sure she could see every movement he made. He opened a medical kit and took out a device that emitted soft blue light. "This is a stabilizer," he explained. "It will numb the pain and close the wound." "May I?" Lyra hesitated. In her mind, her pride fought her pain. Accepting help from a human would be shameful. But refusing could mean death. She turned her face away. "Do it." The medic nodded and worked quickly. The blue light washed over her injury, cooling the burning flesh. For the first time since waking up, she could breathe without shaking. She watched him silently. He wore a marking on his chest, symbol of a red cross surrounded by stars, probably the sign of his medical unit. His movements were steady and professional. He had probably treated many soldiers before her, maybe even some from her enemy forces. "Why?" she asked suddenly. He glanced at her. "Why? What? Why help me? I'm your enemy." He paused for a moment, then shrugged lightly. "Wounded is wounded. Doesn't matter whose side you're on." She frowned. That logic was strange to her. Among her people, enemies were either prisoners or corpses, not patients. "What is your name?" she asked more sharply than intended. "Daniel," he replied. She was silent for a moment. "Lyra," she murmured. He nodded. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." She gave him a cold look. "This is not a friendly meeting." Daniel chuckled softly. "Maybe not. But I'm glad you're still alive." She didn't know how to respond to that once he'd finished sealing her wound. He injected something into her arm, a clear liquid that made her feel lighter. "Painkiller," he said. "You'll feel sleepy." "That's okay. I'll stay with you." "Why?" She whispered again. "Why would you stay? There are other soldiers around. Go save them." He shook his head. "I already did. You're the last one here." "So, why me?" Daniel looked at her with a serious expression. "Because I don't leave people." Behind, the words struck her like an arrow. "I don't leave people." Behind, it was the opposite of what her own army had. Done toward her chest tightened. She turned her head away so he wouldn't see the emotion in her eyes. The sky grew darker. Stars appeared slowly. Daniel unfolded a silver thermal blanket and gently covered her with it. Lyra felt warmth for the first time since the battle. She hated how good it felt. Sleep. "You're safe now." Safe. The word felt foreign to her. She had never associated safety with humans. But somehow, she believed him. Her eyelids grew heavy. She whispered without realizing, "Daniel." "Yes. If I die, don't bury me here." "You're not going to die," he said firmly. She gave a weak smile. "You don't know that?" Daniel paused, then spoke with quiet strength. "Then I'll make sure you live." Her breath slowed. "Strange human," he smiled. "Get some rest, Lyra." For the first time since waking, she allowed herself to close her eyes without fear. The pain faded, the cold disappeared, and her last thought before sleep was not of shame or failure. It was of a human who refused to leave her behind. At first, she thought she was dreaming. The air smelled clean instead of burned. The ground beneath her was soft instead of dirt and ash. She was lying on a bed, a real bed, not a medical cot like the temporary ones on battlefields. She blinked slowly, her vision adjusting to the soft white light above her. The ceiling was metal, with small vents and narrow lines glowing blue. She heard footsteps and distant voices, calm voices. Not panicked ones. She was not outside anymore. She was inside a ship. Her heart jumped. She tried to sit up quickly but gasped as her muscles protested. Her body still felt weak, but the pain was not as sharp as before. She pulled the blanket back, and her eyes landed on her right leg. Or rather, what replaced it? A metal leg. Smooth silver plating from thigh to ankle, shaped almost like her original limb. It wasn't bulky like some machines she had seen before. It was slim, precise, and polished. Small lights flickered softly near the joints, reacting to her movements. Her breath caught. She reached out and touched it with trembling fingers. It was warm, not cold like she expected. almost like skin, but firm. She stared at it for a long moment, her throat tight. Her mind did not know if she should feel grateful or angry. "What do you think of it?" The voice made her turn sharply. Daniel stood beside the doorway, holding a tray with food and a glass of water. He wore the same white medic uniform, but without armor this time. His dark hair was slightly messy, and there were faint, tired lines under his eyes. He must not have slept much. He gave her a gentle smile. "It's temporary," he said, walking closer. "Just a basic model to help you move until we make a custom. One that fits your style." Lyra's fingers tightened around the blanket. "I didn't agree to this." Daniel placed the tray on a nearby table. "You were unconscious for 2 days," he explained. "Your wound was healed, but your body needed rest. The prosthetic was attached while you were recovering. It wasn't meant to offend you." Offend. That word hit her heart like a knife. "You think this is not offensive?" she snapped. "You replaced my leg without asking." Daniel nodded calmly. "Yes, because without it, your body was unstable. You would not have been able to sit or even turn without reopening the wound." She opened her mouth, but no words came out. He was right, but the logic didn't ease her pride. He pulled a chair and sat beside the bed. "Lyra," said gently, "I know your people have strict honor rules. I understand that this is hard for you, but I want you to know, this leg doesn't make you weak." Her eyes narrowed. "Among my people, it does." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "Then your people have outdated ideas." Lyra glared at him. "Watch your words. Human. Mean it," Daniel said, his voice still calm. "A tool doesn't define strength. The person using it does." Lyra turned her face away angrily. He sighed softly but didn't push further. "Eat," he said, placing the tray on her lap. She hesitated, then slowly began eating. The food was simple: soft bread, vegetables, and a warm broth. She didn't want to admit it, but it was good. She hadn't tasted proper food in days. Daniel stood up. "I'll be outside if you need anything. When you're ready, I'll help you stand." "I don't need help," she muttered. He smiled faintly. "We'll see." He left the room, leaving her alone. 2 hours later, she swung her leg slowly to the side of the bed. The metal leg felt heavy, not physically, but emotionally. It looked too clean, too artificial. She put her left foot on the ground first, solid, then, with hesitation, she lowered the right one. It touched the floor with a soft metallic sound. Her heart pounded. She tried to stand. Her balance shifted. The prosthetic leg wobbled. She stopped. Took a breath, slowly. She pushed herself up. Her body trembled. But she stood, on 2 legs. Her eyes widened. She was standing. She was standing again. Her throat tightened. And something strange she didn't want to name. She took 1 step. The metal limb moved smoothly. Responding well to her weight, she took another step. Suddenly, the door opened. Daniel walked in carrying a tablet and froze. Lyra stood there, breathing hard, her hand gripping the bed for support. She lifted her chin proudly. "Told you. I don't need help." Daniel's lips curved into a wide smile. "No, you don't." He didn't clap. He didn't cheer. But the respect in his eyes was enough. That respect was something she thought she would never receive again. In the next few days, Daniel trained her. At first, she refused. But when she realized the prosthetic could be controlled with practice, curiosity pushed away her stubbornness. They practiced in the ship's rehabilitation room, a wide space filled with equipment from different alien species. Handrails, balance pads, resistance machines. Daniel guided her carefully. "Place weight evenly," he instructed. "I know how to balance," she snapped. "Not with a new limb." "You don't," he replied calmly. She glared at him again. He seemed immune to her anger. Maybe he saw through it. Maybe he knew it was just her pride protecting her from pain. 1 step. Another. Her movements were stiff at first. The metal leg didn't respond like her real one. It reacted faster. It gripped surfaces differently. It had no muscle fatigue, which made it both an advantage and a weakness. She had to learn its rhythm. Daniel stood nearby, always at the perfect distance, close enough to catch her if she fell, but far enough to respect her independence. Once, she stumbled. Instinctively, Daniel moved forward to help, but she growled, "Don't touch me." He froze. She stabilized herself and continued. Daniel smiled slightly, stubborn. "Disciplined," she corrected. He chuckled. "Right, disciplined." Days passed. She grew stronger. Her confidence returned slowly, carefully, like a flame rising from embers. Sometimes at night, she couldn't sleep. She would sit on her bed and stare at the metal leg. She still struggled to accept it as part of her, but then she would remember Daniel's words. A tool doesn't define strength. The person using it does. She didn't know why his words mattered, but they did. One morning, during training, Lyra paused and looked at Daniel. "You're different," she said. He raised a brow. "Different from what?" "From what I was told about humans." Daniel tilted his head. "What were you told?" "That humans are weak. That they cheat in battle. That they pretend to be kind, but stab you when you aren't looking." Daniel smiled faintly. "We probably have some people like that. Yes, but not all." Lyra nodded slowly. "You are strong?" she said quietly. Daniel blinked, surprised. "Me. You don't fight with weapons," she said, "but you fight with will. You don't fear blood. You don't give up even when others would. That is strength." Daniel didn't speak for a moment, then he smiled softly. "Thank you, Lyra." She looked away quickly as if embarrassed. "Don't misunderstand. I still don't trust humans fully." "That's fair," Daniel said with a grin. "I'll earn it." Lips almost formed a smile, almost later that day. Daniel brought her to a viewing deck. Large transparent windows showed the stars outside. Distant galaxies shimmered like silver dust across the darkness. Ships moved slowly nearby, rescue vessels gathering survivors from different worlds. Lyra stood quietly, watching. "So many ships," she murmured. "Are they all human?" Daniel shook his head. "No, coalition forces. Humans, Dralians, Vexerans, and more. Our alliance includes over 20 species." She stared at the ships again. "Why would so many different races fight together? Don't you have disagreements?" Daniel chuckled. "Of course we do, but we try to work past them. Some of us believe helping each other brings more peace than war ever could." Lyra's eyes softened. Her world never believed in such things. Strength ruled. The weak obeyed. But here, she saw something different. Something she did not understand yet could not ignore. That night, when Daniel came to check on her, Lyra spoke before he could say anything. "Daniel, yes. Thank you." He paused. "For what?" "For not leaving me behind." His expression became gentle. "I meant what I said," he replied softly. "I don't leave people behind." Lyra looked down at her metal leg, then back at him. "Even enemies?" Daniel shook his head. "Not enemies," he said. "Just people." Lyra said nothing. But for the first time since the battlefield, she felt hope, not because she had a new leg, but because she had a new path. Weeks passed aboard the medical vessel. Lyra's body grew stronger every day, and her confidence returned faster than she expected. Each morning, she would wake to the gentle hum of the ship's engines and the soft voice of Daniel calling her for training. Slowly, she learned to move with her prosthetic leg as naturally as her original one. Though she still refused to call it part of her, it was a tool, a very effective tool, and that was all. But training was no longer just about walking or balance. Daniel began teaching her to fight again. The ship was equipped with simulation rooms that mimicked battlefield conditions. Lyra's movements had once been fluid, almost like a dance. Now, she had to adapt. Each kick, each turn, each step with her metal leg required conscious adjustment. At first, she was frustrated. Every missed strike and every stumble tested her patience. But Daniel remained patient, never judging, only correcting and guiding. "You're faster than most new soldiers," he said one afternoon, his tone even but impressed. "Your mind hasn't forgotten, Lyra. Only your body needed time."
Oh.
She didn't answer at first, focusing on her strikes against the holographic targets. Then, when a simulated enemy fell under her precise movement, she allowed a small smile. Not prideful, not victorious, just content. One evening, as the stars stretched endlessly outside the observation window, Lyra sat quietly, her prosthetic leg resting before her. She watched the distant galaxy clusters and remembered the battlefield where everything had been lost. She had hated herself for hours, maybe days. She had believed the universe had taken everything from her, her leg, her strength, her purpose. But Daniel had shown her something she hadn't considered possible: hope. Even without her original leg, even without the battlefield she once knew, she could still matter. She could still fight. She could still live with honor, her own kind of honor. Daniel appeared at the door quietly. He held a tray of water and fruit, his eyes soft as he looked at her. "You're thinking again," he said, a small smile forming. She didn't respond immediately. Then, finally, she said, "I never thought I'd stand again. Not like this. Not without my real leg." Daniel placed the tray beside her and sat down. "You've learned to walk, run, and fight. That's more than most could do," he said. "You didn't just survive, Lyra. You adapted. You grew stronger." She looked at him, studying his calm eyes. His words were simple, but they carried weight. She swallowed. "I still feel incomplete." "Maybe," Daniel said softly, "but being incomplete doesn't mean you're weak. It means you have the chance to be better, different, stronger." Her fingers brushed the metal of her prosthetic leg. For the first time, she felt something beyond resentment or anger. Acceptance, perhaps even trust. The next day, alarms blared across the ship. Red lights flashed, warning of an approaching threat. Lyra's heart jumped. Training was over. This was real. Daniel's voice rang through the hallway, calm but commanding. "Lyra, we have incoming hostiles. We need all able-bodied fighters." Her first instinct was fear, but it was quickly replaced by determination. She had trained for this moment. She had learned to fight again. The metal leg beneath her made her faster than she could have imagined, precise in ways flesh alone never had been. She adjusted the settings to enhance agility. Her body responded almost instinctively. The simulation room's lessons turned into real-life maneuvers. The ship's AI opened access doors to the outer deck, and she saw the enemy boarding pods approaching. Humans and aliens alike rushed to prepare defenses, but some of the wounded were still on stretchers, too weak to fight. Daniel approached her, giving a small nod. "Ready?" he asked. Lyra didn't answer. She simply sprinted forward. The battle began. Energy blasts erupted across the deck. Aliens and humans moved together, defending the vessel as one. Lyra's first strike took an enemy off balance. Her leg's precision allowed her to push off the walls, twisting midair and landing perfectly. Her balance and agility were almost unnatural. She moved like she had never lost anything. But more than her body, it was her mind that had changed. Before, she had relied purely on instinct, trained muscle memory, and pride. Now, she thought strategically, coordinated with her teammates, and adapted quickly to new conditions. Daniel fought beside her, directing others, tending to the injured, and never leaving anyone behind. The same promise he had made to her weeks ago. A group of attackers breached the main hall. Lyra didn't hesitate. She led the charge, flanking them from the side. Each movement was precise, efficient, almost effortless. The prosthetic leg responded flawlessly, enhancing her speed without slowing her down. She could see the enemy falter at her unexpected agility. Daniel moved alongside her, a mix of medic and strategist, coordinating attacks, helping wherever needed. Even in the chaos, Lyra felt a strange calm. Together, they were unstoppable. The battle continued for hours. The crew suffered minor injuries, but the coordination between humans and aliens made the attackers' progress slow. Lyra found herself fighting in places she had never imagined. corridors, maintenance rooms, even zero-gravity chambers. Each environment tested her new capabilities. Each success reinforced her confidence. She was not broken. She was not weak. She was stronger than before, physically, mentally, and emotionally. At one point, she cornered an enemy soldier in a narrow hallway. His weapon aimed directly at her chest, but she didn't flinch. With a swift movement, she kicked against the wall, spinning midair and knocking the soldier unconscious. Her leg strength allowed her to control every movement. Standing there, she realized something vital. It wasn't just the leg that made her effective. It was her will, her determination, her refusal to give up, even when the odds were impossible. Finally, the attackers retreated. Alarms silenced. The crew breathed in relief. Lyra stood at the center of the deck, chest heaving, eyes scanning the aftermath. Humans and aliens moved around her, some tending to the wounded, others repairing minor damage. And then her eyes found Daniel. He was checking on a young Dralian soldier, making sure the wounds were not severe. When he saw her watching, he gave a faint smile. "You did well," he said quietly, his voice carrying across the deck. Lyra didn't respond immediately. Her mind replayed the battle, every moment of fear, every moment of courage, every precise movement that her new leg allowed. She realized she had survived. Not just survived, she had led, fought, and inspired others. Her pride, once shattered, had returned not as arrogance, but as something purer, self-respect. You didn't leave anyone behind," she said finally. Her voice was steady, stronger than she expected. Even when it was dangerous, Daniel nodded. "I told you. I don't leave people behind." She studied him for a moment, her gaze softening. For the first time, she allowed herself to trust fully. Not just his skill, not just his judgment, his character. She felt something she had not felt in years: belonging. Not as a soldier of her empire, not as a warrior defined by others, but as a person capable of fighting, surviving, and helping others. Days later, the medical vessel continued its journey through the stars. Lyra walked through the corridors confidently, her prosthetic leg moving naturally, almost like it had always been part of her body. Daniel followed closely, watching, offering guidance when necessary. But most of the time, she didn't need it anymore. During one quiet moment on the observation deck, she looked at the stars again. She thought of the battlefield, where she had lost everything. The pain, the loss, the hopelessness, it still lingered. But it no longer controlled her. "I never thought I'd feel whole again," she admitted softly, speaking more to herself than to Daniel. "Not after losing my leg. Not after losing hope." Daniel stepped beside her. "You are whole, Lyra. You just had to see it for yourself." She glanced at him, her lips curving into a faint but genuine smile. "You made me see it." He returned her smile, not arrogant, not boastful, simply calm and steady, the same man who had saved her life. Day after day, week after week, for the first time in a long time, Lyra felt ready to face new challenges, ready to fight for something bigger than herself, ready to reclaim her purpose, not defined by her past, but by her choices, by her strength, by her will. And as the stars stretched endlessly before her, she realized something powerful. Life had taken much from her, but it had also given her more than she could have imagined: courage, skill, hope, and trust. Most of all, it had given her the knowledge that even in loss, even in darkness, a single person could make all the difference. She turned to Daniel. "I think I'm ready." He nodded. "I know you are." Together, human and alien, medic and warrior, they looked out at the stars, ready to face whatever the universe might throw at them next. The past was behind her. Her leg was gone, but her future was limitless.